What is your best don't mess with me moment? I'll gladly start. One day I was out fishing at a local pond with a few girls that I went to school with. We'd gotten close because of honor society. Yes, they're attractive. We catch a few bass and channel catfish and decide it's time to head home before dusk sets tonight. Now, mind you, there is about a 150 to 200 yard path from the parking lot to the actual pond, so we started heading down said path. As we get about halfway down, we see two local thugs who have dropped out of high school and are always around to cause trouble in our town. Since I am carrying all of the tackle for non-fishermen, rods, lures, tackle box, etc., I'm also trailing the three girls. As we get closer to the thugs, I hear them yelling BS like, "Damn, mommy, look at that back," right in front of the girls. Next, the guy in front turns around and grabs one of my friends' backs. This angered me more than anything, and I stupidly yelled, "Hey, schmuck, don't even freaking look at them." I admit I'm a little hot-tempered and probably could have handled the situation much better, but screw it, I was in the heat of the moment. The two guys start walking over to me, obviously ready to roughen me up. With quick thinking, I dropped my tackle and flipped out my 4-inch Smith & Wesson knife from my pocket, and to put the icing on the cake, I pulled out my K-bar that I use for filleting. After this, the story kind of winds down. The dudes were silent after that, took a very wide path around us, and we were on our way. Needless to say, that was my great "don't screw with me" moment. Wow, from honor society fishing trip to medieval weaponry display in 2.5 seconds. Impressive. High fives. Story 2. I was biking with a female friend of mine. She needed to toss a water bottle in the garbage, and we spotted a garbage can about 20 meters away from the trail in a nearby field and park space. There was a little bit of liquid left in the bottle, so rather than have her walk across the grass to toss it in, I grabbed it and said, "Allow me." I gave it the best Kareem hook shot I had in me, and to my surprise, it nailed the park ranger right in the face. Screw the police. Story 3. I was with some friends. We were all intoxicated. We walked out of a bad Greasy spoon at 3 a.m. and ran into some guys walking into the restaurant, also intoxicated. I was the last in my group, and I accidentally rubbed shoulders with the first guy in that group. Immediately, he starts talking crap, but I just ignore him and keep walking to the parking lot. I'm about halfway to my car when he says something that particularly offends me because it was targeted at one of the girls with us. I turn around and seconds later, we're in the middle of a blank spot in the parking lot with our friends off to the sides. Eye to eye, he finally realizes that I'm a pretty big guy. We have a tense silence for a few seconds, then, under my breath, I quietly say, "You're going to say, screw this guy, he ain't worth it. You're going to turn around, walk away, and rejoin your friends. And you're going to do that because if you don't, you won't need to eat because I'm going to feed you your freaking shoes." About 5 seconds passed before he said, "Screw this guy, he ain't worth it," and rejoined his friends. Story 4. This wasn't me because I'm not nearly enough to do anything like this. My friend's dad is a truck driver, and he used to pick up hitchhikers like all the time. One time, he picked up 2 of them, and they started on the journey to wherever they were going. After an hour, one decides he's going to try and jack the truck and pulls out a weapon. Well, my friend's dad floors it and says, "You're going to put that weapon away or I'm going to end us all," and steers directly towards the concrete dividers that are splitting the highway up ahead. The would-be truck jackers put away the weapon and sit quietly for the rest of the ride, and he still drops them off at their destination. Story 5. Mine is copy pasta from another thread I posted in, and it was more of a "don't screw with me because my brother is crazy" moment. I have an older gay brother. It was pretty well known he was gay in high school, but nobody ever flat out asked me about it. One day, 2 guys from the football team, both juniors, are giving me a hard time. Suddenly, brother walks over and says, "Hey, leave him alone. This isn't a request." One guy replies, "Shut up, gay. What are you going to do?" My brother's answer still sticks with me to this day. See, you should think about that. I've been a gay for as long as I can remember, which means I get into fights every day, so I know I can fight. How about you? Can you actually fight, or do you just try to scare people? Because you don't scare me. I've messed with guys bigger than you. Again, leave my brother alone. Screw you, gay. You're not my type. I like men. At this point, a little crowd had gathered and they began to laugh at my brother's last comment. The 2 guys scowled, huffed, and walked away. My brother looked at me, smiled, and said, "Sorry if that was awkward." Story 6. I caught a bullet fired from an M4. We were on the range for guard training, firing the M4. My group wasn't on the line, so we were standing a few meters behind the group firing. The group firing went from standing to prone position, and in doing so, one of the soldiers accidentally discharged her rifle. The round went through the edge of a sandbag, struck a heavy metal pipe right in front of the firing positions, and ricocheted up in an arc toward our group, having lost most of its velocity. On instinct, I stuck out my hand to catch it. I didn't even have time to realize what had just happened before it melted a hole in my glove and burned my hand. I love when people ask about the scar and I get to say, oh, that's from the time I caught a bullet. Story 7. I work at a bar as a bouncer. I don't look like the biggest guy, but I do strength training regularly. I deal with schmucks on a nightly basis. One particular caught my eye when he was literally screaming at his girlfriend inside my bar. I walked up to him and let him know that if he did that again, he would be picking garbage from his teeth. Him being intoxicated didn't listen. As I'm clearing out the bar at bar close, I see him again across the bar near the front door, near the trash can filled with random bar crap and bottles. He yells at her again, reaches back and slaps her. She goes to the floor. I crushed a path through the patrons and he didn't see me coming. One punch KO'd him and he landed headfirst in the trash can. I then proceeded to put the rest of him in it and picked his girlfriend up off the floor and contacted the police. They laughed upon arriving at him still being in the trash can. Story 8. A little over 2 years ago, I had a total thyroidectomy to treat thyroid cancer. The thyroid is a butterfly-shaped pile of glands that lay along the lower front of your neck. To take them out, they had to cut a fairly large slit along my neck, and as you will see, it was pretty gnarly. This picture is about 4 months after the surgery and 2 months after the story. Skip forward 2 months after the surgery, I'm back in university and mingling in a bar with some friends. A prototypical bro is pestering one of the girls in our group. I walk over to try and separate them, and it's immediately obvious that this bro is spoiling for a fight. He's a good 4 inches over me, huffing and slapping his chest, rattling off, "You want to go?" I'm about 5 drinks deep at this point, and I'm not having any of this. I calmly turn to my friend and hand her my drink, returning my attention to the bro who now has a few fellow bro clan at his back. I look him straight in the eyes. "I want to go? I want to go?" I rip open the neck of my shirt, buttons popping off and revealing a still healing slit neck. "You're freaking right I want to go." At this point, everyone in the immediate area has shut up and turned to look. Those in front of me are gawking at my neck. The antagonist bro mumbles a "Jesus Christ crap" as he backs into the equally stunned backup bros. I retrieve my drink from my friend as onlookers come forward to ask what happened to my neck. The rest of the night was quite enjoyable. I don't remember all of it, but I do know I didn't pay for any of the booze I drank after that. I also had 4 new numbers saved in my phone by the next morning, none of them having names I recognized. Story 9. 2 guys at a bar, one sitting next to me and the other across, started messing with me for no apparent reason. They were clearly intoxicated. The fact that I ordered the crappy bar pizza is a testament to the fact that I was nearing that point too. At that point, the waitress comes by and drops my pizza off. The guy across from me is basically challenging me to walk outside. At that moment, the sad excuse of a schmuck next to me makes a grab at my pizza. Through some amazing luck, I see this out of the corner of my eye, launch my arm out, and backslap the crap out of this guy's arm. They must have thought I knew martial arts because they didn't say a word after this and got up to leave. Story 10. Among many of my security jobs, I have worked loss prevention for 2 major retailers. For those wondering, loss prevention is essentially catching shoplifters. Eventually, you just kind of know who to watch and who not to. One day, my partner, a female, and I started watching this guy. Early 20s, overly muscled and spray tanned with a Guido Jersey Shore haircut and a muscle shirt. He is, of course, looking at other muscle shirts in the store. We see him select 5 shirts and go into the fitting room. Long story short, we know that he steals 8 of these shirts eventually, and me and my coworkers are with him acting as an arguing couple the whole time. He eventually goes to leave the store, which is when we can stop him, so we get in front of him at the door, identify ourselves, and ask him to come with us. Now, I normally slouch a lot, but I am 6'4", so the kid gets in my face saying he didn't do anything, and if I don't move, he's going to kick my back. So all I did was stare at him and say, "Make a decision about what you're going to do, and we will go from there." Totally calm, with a straight face, he kind of blinked and got a weird look in his eye and asked me, "What?" So I repeated myself. I said, "Make a decision about what you're going to do. We will go from there." He kind of sat there for a few seconds and leaned back a bit and started pestering my female coworker instead. At that point, I snapped my fingers and told him to pay attention to me. After that, we placed him in handcuffs and led him to the office for processing. Since then, I have used that line multiple times at other LP security jobs and even at bars. The only time anyone has ever done anything after that was a patient from a mental hospital I worked at who was a schizophrenic, and at that point, it didn't matter what I said. Story 11. I was out in downtown Houston skating around with some friends when I told them I had to stop and whiz. So I walked into a narrow alley and just started whizzing. I didn't see these 2 girls just smoking cigarettes staring at me. So I looked at them and smiled. Right as I finished up, a couple of schmucks came up and just straight started pestering them. Typical, you got a pretty mouth, dumb crap. So I start to walk over to break that crap up when a guy looks up at me and says, "What the heck you think you're gonna do, wuss?" So I just started talking in a low voice in German, just repeating lyrics from Ramstein, making it sound like a threatening sentence instead of a song. Then they freaked out because I'm a tall, fairly muscular guy. They left, and the girl said thanks and asked me what I said, and I told them I don't know, and I left. Story 12. King of the hipsters parked in front of my driveway the other day, and I yelled out, "Hey, center of the universe family, I have places to be, move your car." As I was closing the door, one yelled back, "Screw off." And I thought, what the heck? A bunch of skinny jean schmucks told me to screw off? So I walked back out to the edge of my property and said, "Just frickin' move your car, schmuck." And guy number one, who had an ironic mustache, skinny jeans, a vintage shirt, and horn-rimmed glasses, yells at me. Him, "Go back in your house, gay." Me, "So you're an inconsiderate schmuck and homophobic." This turned him bright red and he came at me until his friend held him back. His friend, "You're better than that." Me, "Based on the evidence I have available, I would have to say he is not." Hipster turns to friends, "I'm walking home and grabbing my bike. I'm just mad." Me, crap eating grin the whole time. "Fixed gear?" Hipster gets in my face, "You are the most ignorant person I've ever met." Me, "I'm not using slurs." Hipster, "Screw you." Me, "Enjoy the ticket." The police ticketed it before he got back. Hipster, "It's only $25. Me, "Unless I'm mistaken, that is about 5 hours as a Starbucks barista, isn't it?" Hipster walks away, "Go back to doing gay stuff." Me, "This is a gay-friendly neighborhood, sir. I'd appreciate it if you kept your foul language to yourself." Hipster flips me the bird. I blow him a kiss. Not really cool, but I kept my complete cool the whole time and smiled. And it was one of the few times I actually had comebacks that really stung. The best part is that from the looks of both of us, you'd think I'd be the one to use slurs. I'm a straight white. So I could tell that pointing out his hate to him really just rustled his jimmies. Story 13. I was living with a middle-aged woman. Since I am middle-aged as well, this was a fairly decent arrangement. Her daughter was living with us as well, 17 years old and hell on wheels. From what I understand, one of her former boyfriends became upset with her because she had a new boyfriend. He was going to come to my home and hurt her under my roof. He said that if I got in his way, he was going to hurt me as well. A friend of hers caught wind of what was happening and called her mother. She called me. The boys showed up with an audience. I greeted them just by poking my head out the door and telling them to get the screw off of my property. Schmuck gets out of the vehicle. I open the door and he can see that I'm packing a 45 and shoulder rig. I also have an 870 by the door. I hear a forlorn "Hi, Brabbit" from his friend that came along to witness him hurting me. I repeated my demand that the man remove himself from my property and he complied. It could have been the gun. Then again, it could have been the shovel leaning against my truck and the fact that no one would come looking for him if he disappeared that far from town. Story 14. Playing paintball, me and some dude I just met were playing a game that required us to defend a small plywood village on a hill. Everyone around us was getting picked off for about 30 minutes. Then the whistle was blown by the ref, signaling that our team was allowed to leave the village. With a nod, we took off in the opposite direction of the attacking team, running down the hill and circling around. Running full speed, we rounded the hill. No one saw us coming. Their attention was centered on the plywood village. And one by one, we shot every single member of the other team. It was the coolest game of my entire life. A ref saw the whole thing and tossed us 2 cheap little keychains with the name of the field as a keepsake to remember it by. I still have that keychain. Story 15. I was with a bunch of guy friends at a bar drinking. For some reason, this girl was not happy with me. I wouldn't even be able to tell you why. I'm sure it's because I was female too, and you shouldn't step to someone's gender like that. Anyway, I'm pretty non-confrontational, but about 45 minutes of her yelling at me every time she sees me walk around a corner, I start getting fed up. I was a little buzzed, mind you, but then she approached me as I was standing in front of a big hallway mirror with multiple friends around. She walked up to me, put her face close to mine, and said, "Don't turn around, there'll be a witch staring back at you." I looked blankly at her for like a second, and then all of a sudden, wham! I felt my arm hook around and my clenched fist hit her right in the side of the head, and she fell down. Everyone just stood in silence for a minute until she started screaming, at which point I was calmly sipping from the drink that was still in my left hand. She ran away all hysterical, calling the bouncer over and screaming, "That's her!" The bouncer looked at me, noticed I was not tripping over myself and didn't have tears streaming down my face like she was, turned to her and said, "Get out now." The whole bar had stopped to watch at this point, and as she was walking out, I got an entire bar full of applause. It was awesome. Story 16. I work as an EMT, and one time we had a heck of a call. Old lady had damn near scalped herself in the fall and was quite messy, trying to keep her calm to keep the bandage on her. After the call, I was covered from the front down in my uniform and took off the top layer to reveal my undershirt, which was also covered in red liquid. Too late in the day, not caring, I hopped in the back of the rig and headed to base to change. My apartment was a mile from the base, so I headed there instead. As we pull up, I hear voices yelling and hop out in my now drenched clothes. I turn around the corner and see three guys pestering, grabbing, and pulling one of my neighbors, an elderly woman who doesn't speak much English. So I quickly took stock of the situation, grabbed a tire iron from the side of the rig, which was slightly out of view. I took a few steps and yelled, "Leave her alone or you're going to pay," while my partner calls for PD backup. They turn around just as some of the outside lights come on and reveal me, a 5'10" skinny guy, covered in red liquid with tactical pants on with a tire iron. Their faces were priceless. Suddenly, one of them books and the other says to the last guy there, "Crap, I'm not dealing with that dude," and follows his friend. I helped the lady and then realized what a scary sight I was. Some dude covered in red liquid with a tire iron coming out from around the corner into the light and angry. She ended up being fine and I changed rather quickly after that. Police came and got what little info they could, and we were all on our way, but god dang, I felt like a superhero. Story 17. My favorite moment happened in 5th grade. I was a tiny, towhead blonde girl who got picked on a lot. Even though I was at a private school, the kids got really violent. Lots of pent-up privilege rage. Anyway, one day in music class, a kid about 40 pounds heavier and a foot and a half taller than me kicked me in the back and I fell on my face. The teacher does nothing. I came home with a bruise from my tailbone to my scapula. Naturally, my mom wasn't pleased. After she met with the school and they still took no disciplinary action, she gave me permission to exercise any defensive action I saw fit if he ever touched me again. Fast forward about a week and I'm on the top of the play structure at recess. The kid comes up to me and starts trash talking to get me to leave. I try to ignore him and refuse to move. Then he decides to start laughing about how I need someone else to fight for me. Now I'm starting to get mad, but I keep my cool. Then he decides it's a good idea to bring up my mother and pushes me. Now, this kid wanted to be a Marine. I think I crushed that dream, literally. I grab him by his shirt collar and run him to the edge of the structure, slam him into the metal pole on one side, and threw him over the edge. He broke his collarbone. Best part, he got suspended for 5 days. I got nothing. No kid ever messed with me again. And if you're enjoying the video, please don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 18. Well, it's nothing really, but I was walking home from a date past a lot of clubs and some guy just shouted, "Hey, look at that gay." Now, if you know me, I am the most docile person you would ever encounter. I just thought, nah, I've had a great day. So I turned around and said, "Your dad would know, idiot." And to this, he squared up to me and I just punched him and floored him in one and walked off on my merry way. Story 19. Probably more of a schmuck thing than a cool thing, but oh well. I used to work at Starbucks in the city where a lot of trust fund kids like to hang out and act homeless. There was always a group of them who stood out front of the store that was next to Starbucks, yelling at people and usually playing hacky sack with each other. They made it a habit of yelling at anyone who walked through their game, threatening them, a bunch of BS. I was going into my shift one day and was in a rotten mood. There they are, playing that game in the middle of the sidewalk, blocking everyone. I walked right through them, interrupted the game, and they started to call me out. I kept walking until I felt the hacky sack hit me in the back. I picked it up and threw it on the roof of Starbucks and walked into work. Story 20. I was in the Marines. I was stationed in Japan for 2 years. All within a 2-month period, about at my first year mark, I got in trouble for drinking, got reduced in rank, was on military restriction during my birthday, my girlfriend broke up with me, my dog passed away, my stepdad sold my motorcycle, and my mom crashed my car. I felt like I had nothing. I was in an interesting state of depression in which my mood was, as the title says, "Don't mess with me mood." I was at the on-base bar of age now and was just simply drinking my sorrows away. I see this female being pestered by some intoxicated male Marines and she actually looked like she needed help. It was 3 huge Marines that looked like they would just pummel anybody. I had the intoxicated thing going through my mind of, I got nothing else to lose other than my life at this point, might as well go save this woman. So I walk over and I tell the guys to get away from the girl. They look at me and laugh. I look down with a smirk of, time to look like I'm a psychopath. I then say in a very creepy, jarring, mental patient type of voice, I got some mental issues with you, my friend, and I have nothing more to lose. You might call me depressive, but I will roughen you up. The only way to stop me is going to end me, so you might well just get the hell away. I don't know how I did it, but I literally freaked out 230 pounds of muscle Marines, and I was only like 170. I then turn to the bartender and tell them to give me another drink so I can calm down. The bartender hands me another Jack and Coke as the girl thanks me. I slam the drink like it would be a shot with what I am guessing was a cool, psychopathic looking face, and I walk out of the bar. I then noticed that everyone in the bar was watching me leave in silence. They all knew not to mess with me. I was on my last inch of sanity. Fast forward 5 years, I'm doing fine now. No more mental issues. Thanks for reading. Story 21. It isn't much, but here goes. I was meeting a friend of mine for dinner at a dining court on campus. He showed up with some of his other friends too. Towards the end of the meal, they started dumping the leftover food and drink into a single glass and introduced me to what they called a Dirty Larry. One of the guys started talking about starting an intramural basketball team. He was going around the table asking each person if they were a good basketball player. When he asked me, I simply picked up the hush puppy lying on my plate and tossed it into the Dirty Larry cup sitting 8 feet away. Feels cool, man. Story 22. The other day, this annoying, obnoxious little schmuck, looked like Eminem and was about 19 years old, walked into the fast food restaurant me and my coworkers were eating lunch at. He thinks he's all hard and walks with a ghetto strut like he's somebody special. He walks in with one of those iPod boomboxes blasting his crappy rap music. So loud no one can talk or eat in peace. Mind you, there are old people around. The music was just so loud. Totally appropriate for social settings. Then sits at a table across from me, rips open his bag of food and proceeds to hump to his crap music. And then he throws his food wrapper on the floor, not giving a single crap. My mind begins to instantly boil. I stand up, I'm very intimidating in stature, and yell to him in the most stern voice I've ever mustered up, "Turn that crap off and pick up your wrapper." The manager walked over as he knew something was about to go down, and needless to say, there was no more music and his garbage was picked up. The rest of the people in the restaurant gave me looks of praise for calling him out as it was totally cool. Sometimes you have to put Eminem in his place, you know? Little wiggers with no respect for others can be total witches. Yeah, he went from ghetto strut to humble shuffle of shame real quick, didn't he? Story 23. I actually had mine just the other day. I've been drinking quite heavily, and this happened just after Ireland lost a match to Croatia. I don't handle losses very well. I'm walking to another pub with my friend, and some intoxicated schmuck starts mouthing off at us. We try to get rid of him, and when his phone rings, I figure we've finally lucked out of this schmuck. We pick up the pace and try to shake him off, but he's so intoxicated that he's shouting into his phone, so we can easily hear it. He refers to us as witches several times, being a real lower colon. His phone call ends and he catches up to us. This guy was freaking huge, so it wouldn't have been very hard to gain in on two short girls. And this is when he makes a comment about my back. I've been getting annoyed for a good while, but that was when I snapped. I whipped around and got all up in his face. I had the fronting hand going thing and everything. I don't even know where the courage came from. Wait, I do. A Jägermeister. But I gave him the best stare I've given in my life. Then I deliver a line despite having been a writer since I was a kid, I've never topped even in fiction. You've made a lot of bad decisions tonight. Now go make a good one and walk away. He's so surprised that he just stares for a few seconds and then he tries to go after my friend. The classic, "Your friend is a bit of a witch, isn't she?" approach, but I'm having none of it. I keep my hand in his face and keep saying, "Walk away, walk away." He eventually realizes that I am not even a little bit joking and screws off. It was tremendously satisfying. Story 24. A guy talked his way into my neighbor's house pretending to be from Comcast and then left once he saw she had several large dogs. Neighbor called Comcast. There was no work order for her house, and she warned us to be on the lookout for a small-bodied black truck and gave us a description of the guy. Fast forward 2 days, and I look outside to see a guy parked in our cul-de-sac in a small black truck taking photos of our house. There was no reason to take photos of our house. It wasn't for sale or architecturally pleasing in any way. So I decided the guy was causing the house to be robbed. Admittedly, I went a little redneck, but I made myself as big as possible, barged out of the house, and charged right at the truck. The look on the guy's face was one of complete surprise as he threw the camera down and gunned the truck out of the neighborhood. I'm a short female, but I guess charging at the guy with as much aggression as I could muster was cool enough. We never saw him on our street again. Story 25. I have a best friend, one of my closest friends, we'll call him Ed, Crazy Ed actually. As a high schooler at the time, 17, I was a nerd and still am, and I would consider myself a lover and not a fighter type of guy. Crazy Ed would end you for no reason just to watch you burn. He and I love metal, and Ed is the kind of guy if you say, "You won't do it, you wuss," Ed would do it instantly. He fears nothing. One day, we went for a trip into the city involving a public bus about a 10-minute ride from our outer suburb town. It was just something to pass the time, and as night rolled around, we decided to head back to the train station and go home. It was surprisingly empty at this time of night. As we waited for our stop, we heard yelling and fighting. A woman was being roughed on by her boyfriend or husband. Sad to say, but I gotta be honest, I wasn't going to do anything about it. It angered me that I was such a wimp to not do anything, but I just act like it wasn't my business and I ignored it. He was hurting her pretty good, and Crazy Ed flung to the rescue. Ed leapt on this man, probably 30, 35, and pretty damn big. Ed, being insane, 17, and afraid of nothing. He kicked the man in the leg, knocked him down, and started the fight well. At this point, I helped out. I suppose it was because I knew for some reason we would win this fight or I would have chickened out. I leapt to action. I don't fight often and haven't been in many fights in my life prior to this moment, so I was nervous and I was amazing. The man had already gone to his feet and was punching Ed pretty good before I finally had the courage to help out. I zoomed in like lightning and caught the man with an uppercut to the jaw, knocking him. It was like I had the combustion power of 1,000 suns inside of me. 17 years of pent-up nerd rage exploded for me that day, and this man was out cold. I felt like a knight in shining armor, and I had saved the day. The young woman was very thankful, and a few minutes later, after the train arrived, yep, this remains a fold moment for me and Ed to this day. We always tell our tale of how we beat some guy in the train station. 10 years later, I often include guns and zombies and lightsabers to ensure epic status. Ed, the catalyst of chaos, and him, the unexpected anime protagonist, a true dynamic duo. Story 26. I attended an annual college bike tour, which consists of everyone, about 500, riding bikes around a neighborhood getting hammered. After about 3 hours into the event, my friend's bikes get stolen. I wasn't around him when it happened, but he finally found the guys who did it and covertly took one back. But the other guy who had his bike was about to get up and ride away with his bike. So he ran over to me and said, "That guy stole my bike and is about to ride off with it." Without missing a beat, I threw all my stuff, backpack, glasses, neck koozie, and the Red Bull I just chugged, and stormed off to confront the guy with rage in my eyes. I'm about 6 feet, 185, and the guy was about 6'1", 200. I stood in front of the bike, put my hand on the handlebars, and the following conversation ensued. "Me? Is this your bike?" Intoxicated guy. "Yeah, man." "Me? What brand is it?" He started to look down, so I karate chopped his chest so he couldn't look. "Me? What brand is it?" No answer. We stare at each other, sizing one another up. Silence for what seems to be a minute. I see his fist balls up. I get in a striking stance, ready to deflect and screw his crap. A few more silent seconds go by, tension level over 9,000. His buddy finally comes over. "Dude, just get off the bike, man. It's not worth it," he says. Me, "Get off the bike. You know it's not yours." Him, "So if I just get off, we don't have to fight?" Me, "Yeah, just get off the bike, bro." So he got off the bike and shook my hand and apologized. Story 27. I'm 5'7", but I bounced a pretty beefy intoxicated guy out of the bar for annoying the girls we were with. I did the cliche, "All right, buddy, you're done," grabbed the back of his collar and walked him out the front door, giving him a final shove for good measure. I turned back around to the two bouncers that actually worked there and said, "This guy is cut off," and walked back into high fives and applause. Truth be told, I wouldn't have tried that crap if I didn't have a few beers in me as well, and I was with a table of rugby guys that could save me if crap went sideways. Story 28. Not quite as cool as most of these stories, but I've got a good one. Just to provide a bit of context, I'm a super skinny, wimpy white male, and I'm a really nice guy who you'd never expect to lash out at someone. Back in high school, there was this kid who liked to mooch off everybody else's lunch just because he never bought or packed his own. You know, the whole, "I'm really poor, so you should definitely give me all your food. I need it more than you" routine. He wasn't really. He just liked to take our food because he could. Every now and again, I'd give him half a sandwich or something because, like I said, I enjoy being a nice person. But one day, I just snapped. He grabbed my whole lunch bag from right in front of me without even asking for anything, and before I even started to eat my own food. In an instant, I dove across the lunch table, grabbed him by his shirt, pulled him completely over to my side, and growled, "Give me my freaking lunch back, schmuck," in his face. I got it back. It was delicious. I'd call this a cool moment of mine because I never ever act out like that. I'm usually pretty submissive and soft about things, but god dang it, I was excited for my little Debbie's and ham sandwich, and I wasn't gonna let some schmuck take them from me. All my friends were totally shocked too. They had no idea I was even capable of sticking up for myself like that. Guess that's one way to keep people from messing with you. Story 29. My team made it to the finals of our Division 3 playoffs in hockey. I was getting chirped by the other team as I was held scoreless up until that point of the game, was leading playoff scoring race. I was getting frustrated and got into it. The next thing I know, I lost 3 teeth from a cross check in the mouth. In the NHL, it would probably be called a high sticking, but in our league, it was a straight major, minus 5 minutes. I proceeded to score 4 goals on that 5-minute power play, and after every goal, I just looked at the other team's bench with eyes of steel. Would have stared down the guy in the penalty box, but major penalties are auto game misconducts. Story 30. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. At a scout camp in 8th grade, there was an argument between 2 other kids in my scout troop. One of them was threatening the other with a very large and thick stick. I tried to play negotiator and attempted to talk the kid into putting the stick down so the situation could diffuse. The fact that someone was trying to calm him down made this kid furious, and he threw this stick at me as hard as he could. It ended up hitting me on the side of the head and giving me brain damage as well as knocking me unconscious. I regained consciousness about 20 seconds later, and I got up to see him just looking at me acting all cool because he threw a projectile from 10 feet away. I charged at him half unconscious, and he freaked out like a little girl and tried to get away. I swore at him a few times and got him with a few good punches before they finally pulled me off of him. Story 31. This particular scenario has happened 3 times with 3 different exes. I don't understand it. After the breakup, which they initiated, they have to come find me when they have fooled around with the new girlfriend and show her off. In one case, it was a hard breakup for me, so I went into seclusion, started hanging out at totally different locations while avoiding all of her old friends, and in particular him. I would find this one little bar with a calm crowd where I could go after work, read a book, maybe play some pool, chat a little, but mostly just feel safe. Lo and behold, the ex figured out my new spot and entered one night with his new chica, all proud and crap. None of my new crowd even knew who he was, but they saw me, real quiet-like, walk straight up in his face and whisper, "You know me? You know I don't care if anyone thinks I'm crazy. You want a scene? You've got one in about 15 seconds if you don't take her and get out now." I stared him down. He grabbed her by the arm and left while I told him not to come back. This is the same guy who started watching my house a couple of months later. He broke in one night, woke me up, and I calmly walked into the kitchen while he started interrogating me about my new phantom boyfriend. I proceeded to throw everything I could grab at him, turned over the table, broke crockery, pots, pans, and vases flew at his face. Then I dialed 911 while asking him, "Who do you think the cops will hold responsible for this mess?" He laughed fast. Truly, these aren't cool moments since I don't feel any satisfaction about it. More disgust with him and the 2 other guys who were in casual relationships who wanted what? Tears? Drama? A test? I still don't know. Story 32. Way back in high school, one of the football team washouts was trying to pick on us, the table of band geeks, to macho himself up or whatever. He was walking around the table with his friends watching, pushing each or our chairs hard enough to knock us into the table, spilling whatever there was all over us. After he knocked me, I stood up into him and flat palmed straight up into his chin and basically broke his jawbone down the middle. I'm sure I didn't, but it felt like I lifted him 2 feet off the ground. Don't know if it did, but it also felt like one of those and the cafeteria fell silent moments. He ended up with his jaw wired shut for a few months and expelled for instigating, and I got 3 days suspension for retaliating. Story 33. About as cool as a 14-year-old classical pianist can get. I was always a goody-goody. My mother is a somewhat strict but loving mother, and I knew where my place was. Under her guidance, I started piano when I was 4 and haven't stopped yet, 3rd year undergrad in piano performance. She's a professional musician, and she supervised my practice sessions until I was around 13, 14, literally stood behind me watching the music as I played and provided me with comments. Back then, I was only doing around an hour and a half a day, but it was still an hour and a half of running commentary on my piano skills every day, and it was grinding at my nerves. She would also put her foot on my piano bench and lean on her knee in order to lean in towards the music comfortably. One day, I just couldn't get over the fact that she was putting her foot on my bench. She was telling me, "Focus, Bengwalek, you need to focus." And I said, "How can I focus with your foot up my back?" Then I ran to my room. Story 34. I've posted this story in its full glory before in another thread, but I was about 6 at McDonald's play place with my brother, 4 at the time. We were crawling the tubes, and in this one part, I came across this kid hurting my brother. I dived in, pushed my brother out of the way so that the kid came after me. I then pulled my knees to my chest as he rushed me and kicked out with all the 6-year-old leg strength I had. Kid sailed clear across the enclosure and hit the wall on the other side. Worst part is that my brother has no memory of this and refuses to believe it happened. Story 35. I'd been an assistant instructor at my local martial arts school for a while. At this point, I was a second-degree black belt in both Chinese Kenpo and Japanese Shotokan. Some guy comes in with 3 of his buddies from the local boxing club and thinks they can show up the martial artists. I'm 5'10" and roughly 150 pounds, and when in my uniform, I look tiny. They told the head instructor they wanted to test their skills, points to them for being honest at least. Instructor tells them to pick a guy to spar with, and one picks me. We kind of dance around each other, testing. He tosses out a kick toward my thigh, which I avoid, and tells him that it's not safe to kick down low like that. Well, after 2 more warnings, I put my hands up and said, "Okay, hold on." I turned to the ref and said, "Hey, would you mind explain—" Whack, guy just punched me in the side of the head. I turn to him and he puts his hands up like boxers do, his friends going crazy. I lift my leg for a kick and drive every bit of weight and strength I have. It cracks and he hits the floor. I just walk away. Story 36. I enjoyed listening to jazz back in high school days. I'd stand with my group of friends with my iPod and listen while they talked about PC games, which I never had during that time. Anyways, I was listening to jazz when this kid who hung out with some of my friends hit the iPod out of my hands and onto the ground. The screen's backlight turned off and I thought he destroyed it, so I began punching him into the middle of the hallway. I then returned to the circle with all my friends watching, picked up the iPod and yelled at the kid, "I was listening to jazz." No one hit me for the rest of high school. And if any of these stories got to you, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.